I move that the Sentencing Reinstating Three Strikes Amendment Bill now be read a third time. I'm very pleased that this bill has reached its final stage in this House, and I would like to particularly acknowledge the work done by the Justice Select Committee. This bill gives effect to the government's commitment to bring back the three strikes sentencing law. The three strikes regime is a key component of the work this government is delivering to restore law and order. Keeping repeat serious offenders off the streets also supports the government's commitment to 20,000 fewer victims of violent crime by 2029. We are proud to be sending a clear message to offenders that there will be significant consequences for repeat offending. For too long, not enough priority has been given to reducing the harm to victims and communities that results from violent offending. This bill is one of the steps the government is taking towards changing that. To quickly recap, the bill reinstates a three-stage sentencing regime so that offenders face increasingly tougher penalties when they continue to commit serious crimes. In general, offenders will be warned of the consequences of reoffending at their first strike and will not be eligible for parole at their second strike. For a third strike, offenders will have to serve the maximum penalty for the offence without parole. Offenders will be subject to the regime if they commit a qualifying offence and receive a qualifying sentence. The threshold is above 12 months imprisonment for their first strike and above 24 months imprisonment for their second and third strikes. We have also added the new strangulation and suffocation offence to the list of serious violent and sexual qualifying offences covered by the previous regime, increasing that list to 42 offences. We have actively listened to New Zealanders impacted by serious crime and responded to their calls for a tougher response. This is why we have lowered the first strike threshold and reactivated warnings from the previous regime that meet the strike thresholds. More broadly, the bill makes modifications compared to the previous regime to support the new regime's workability. These include imposing appropriately lengthy non-parole periods for people who commit murder of 17 years at second strike and 20 years at third strike. We'll be providing some judicial discretion to avoid manifestly unjust outcomes and address outlier cases, setting out principles and guidance to help the court's application of the new law, and allowing a limited benefit for guilty pleas to avoid re-traumatising victims and to reduce court delays. We'll be providing for when pardons are granted and addressing the use of mental health orders under the Criminal Procedure Mentally Impaired Persons Act 2003. Mr. Speaker, the government is pleased to be reinstating a three strikes regime that is workable and will endure. Serious repeat offenders will soon be facing the necessary consequences for their actions. I believe this new regime will enhance public confidence that law and order is being restored. ACT campaigned to see three strikes reinstated, and this formed part of the coalition agreement. The Sentencing Reinstating Three Strikes Amendment Bill will help make our communities and victims feel safe again, as they are entitled to and as ACT promised. Lastly, we have provided for a 6-month implementation period before the regime commences. This will allow sufficient time to make necessary operational changes. The government is committed to the regime working as intended from day one. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.